Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, Ship and Read. Today I'll be doing a book review. So I don't think I've done a book review in so long, mainly because they're kind of a pain to edit and prep and film. So there's a lot of components involved in it, and I feel like the prep work for book reviews are actually the longest just because I wanted to compile my thoughts to it, and it's obviously more in-depth just because of the nature of this video or these types of videos. So I haven't been doing them in a while, but I really want to get back into it because I really do actually enjoy doing them, just because it actually gives me so much insight in terms of like what I'm reading. But yeah, anyways, today I'll be doing the book review for The Four Winds by Kristin Hannah. Oh, another reason why I feel like book reviews are just kind of a pain to actually do is because when I read them, I have to be more mindful of my reading and just start tabbing things, because I'm not a tabber. Like, for the most part, I'm more of just like a reader, and I just want to like just have fun reading it. But when I actually start tabbing books, that's when I have to be more mindful of what I'm tabbing, what I'm reading, certain quotes in there that I'm like, oh, this is actually really insightful, etc. And so I feel like it's a longer, lengthier process. So if you actually watch my older review videos, the way how I do them is I talk about the summary first. They're non-spoilers. And then I talk about my thoughts for non-spoiler section. So this whole area is like non-spoilers. And then I'll go into the spoiler section, which I will let you guys know. So those who haven't read it can just, you know, leave, pause it, read the book, come back before joining me for the spoiler section. So let's start off with the summary. So this book basically follows a woman called Elsa Wilcox, who was deemed too old, too ugly by her entire family. So she was actually secluded from society for most of her entire life. One night she decides to sneak out and change her own life when she meets a boy called Rafe Martinelli. And of course, things happen between the two of them, and suddenly she finds herself pregnant. She is disowned by her own family, and there's only really one respectable choice left, and that is for her to marry Rafe. And now she's also forced to live with a family that doesn't really want her, because obviously Rafe's parents had their own dreams and goals for him, but of course now that he is married, has a kid, things are a bit different for all of them. Fast forward 13 years later, she now has a beautiful daughter as well as a son, and she has somehow earned her family's love and respect by being just so hardworking and dedication throughout the years on their farm. However, now the world has changed, and drought has devastated millions of farmers in the Great Plains, including her own. And every day just feels like a battle between her and her family's survival with the land, as well as her own marriage. Not only that, but her oldest daughter Loretta is actually just turned 13, has her rebellion stage going on right now, and essentially hates Elsa. To make matters worse, seemingly out of nowhere, her husband actually ends up just picking up and taking off and just leaving his entire family, including his parents, behind. Finally, left to no choice and to just keep her children safe and healthy, she ends up deciding to move to California by herself with her two kids. And so she's not only leaving her parents-in-law behind, but the beautiful land that she has come to love. And of course, traveling hundreds of miles to California as a single woman with two young kids had so many obstacles and hardships that she faced. What she doesn't realize though is that the journey west is actually the easy part. What comes after when she arrives at California is another level entirely. So that's the general gist of this book. I loved it. It was so freaking good. Obviously I gave this 5 stars, by the way, in case it's not obvious. But I would say that Elsa grew up with the shittiest family ever. I mean, her mother, her dad, her entire family just treated her so bad because of the way how she looked. There's actually a quote in here on page 25 where her mother literally said, "You are unmarriageable, Elsinore," that's her full name. "Even with all of our money and standing, no man of note wants an unattractive wife who looms over him. And if a man did come along who could overlook your weaknesses, certainly he would not dismiss a tarnished reputation. Learn to be happy with real life. Throw away your silly romantic novels." I mean, like, growing up in that kind of toxic society, that environment is just, I don't know how she did that. And I felt like the fact that she lived through all of that, plus becoming so hardworking, so dedicated, so loving to her family, like her, you know, her children and her husband and her new family, is just, I don't know, I just felt so much for her. And like, not only was I shocked by her parents, her home family's image of her, but it also really hindered Elsa's own image for herself. She grew up just thinking that she was just really ugly and just unattractive, and you know, no man would ever want her, and I felt like her own self-worth was just nothing. You can see early on in the book that she was only living for her children. I mean, there's a quote in here on 47 where it was like, you little one, you will be loved by me and love me in return. Nothing else mattered. For this child, Elsa would marry a man who didn't love her and join a family who didn't want her. From now on, all her choices will be thusly made for her child. I mean, I just felt like you can see from that she didn't care about herself anymore. All she cared was her child. Like, her own self-worth was nothing because of the way how her family treated her. And the thing is, not only did her family treat her with so much disrespect and disregard, they also treated their own granddaughter like that. So there's another quote here on page 89 when Elsa actually ends up returning home just so her parents can meet her daughter, their granddaughter, for the first time. And this is what her mom said. "Look, Eugene," I'm assuming Eugene is actually the husband's voice, like her father, "how dark her skin is. Take your disgrace away, Elsinore." The door slamming shut. So yeah, obviously I was just like, what the fuck is up with her parents? Her family is just honestly the worst humans. They were so wealthy, so like well respected in their community, but they couldn't even respect their own daughter and love their own daughter. I feel like that's just bogus to me. And this is why I felt so much respect for Elsa, because despite going through all of that, despite living through all of that, she blossomed with marriage and having children. And I just love reading about her growth as a person, as a mother, even though I felt like she didn't really have a lot of self-worth in that sense because her parents just completely trashed it. She was able to still really find love with her new family, with the land that she was cultivating, the farmland, and just her children. Obviously I felt like that was really her only focus. I don't know, I just really respected her for that. She was just really hardworking and she was always willing to learn and help out, and I can tell that her parents-in-law really loved her for that, and they just fell in love. I mean, obviously in the beginning they were just not happy with her, but I felt like, you know, they saw how hard she was willing to work, their own grandchildren, etc. Like, they came to love her as well, and I felt like that was really meaningful. And I felt like because of the way she grew up and learned to persevere throughout all the years and everything, and having a children, going to a new family, that when she got to California and faced so many hardships there and prejudice and not exactly racism exactly, but just a lot of unfair treatment because of where she was from, her situation, the fact that she was a young single woman with children and no husband, she faced a lot of difficulties there. And I felt like because of the way she grew up, she was also able to endure all of that and persevere and actually come out stronger. There were just a lot of messages about resilience, about friendship, about family, about friends, and having hope in this book. And I felt like the way how Kristin Hannah portrayed all of that was just so wonderfully done. And I don't know, the writing was it's exquisite. Her books don't have a ton of actions, I would say. Like, there's not like any fantasy element going on, not a huge mystery going on, nothing like that, but it's just about like a good old, you know, like family book where you learn about family, you learn about love, you learn about hope, you learn about resilience, learn about perseverance, learn about, you know, surviving. And I felt like even though it doesn't have like all the crazy components that I usually read in my fantasy books, it was still really intense with her characters. Like, her books are definitely more character driven, and I just felt like her books just have so many wonderful messages in it. And yeah, it was just a really good book, guys. So anyways, that's all to say for the non-spoiler section. Moving on to my spoiler section. So I actually don't have a ton of things to add, except for the fact that I think her husband Rafe is a complete shit. So I don't know if this really mattered, but he was actually quite young compared to her. When they got married, she was like 25 and he was like 18 or 19 years old. So he was actually about to head off to college. So I felt like throughout the book you can definitely see kind of his immaturity, I suppose, and I felt like there were a lot of times when Elsa was able to handle things and he just simply couldn't. And at first I had some respect for him because I was like, okay, well, you know, that now he is he has a kid and he owned up to that responsibility immediately, so I had respect for that, because they're right in the beginning when that whole like encounter happened, when Elsa's father approached his father and was like, hey, you know, your son got my daughter pregnant and now he's responsible. And his dad was literally like, oh, is this true, son? And Rafe immediately said yes. So I felt like I had respect for him in that sense, because I was like, okay, well, he's obviously clearly able to own up to his responsibility. He could have easily just been like, no, I don't know this woman, etc., etc., but he didn't, and I had respect for him because of that. But of course that whole thing dwindled because of this one scene, and it's actually on page 75, where he literally said to his own daughter, by the way, I made a bad choice a few years back, and well, sometimes your life is chosen for you. Obviously his bad choice is getting pregnant and having a kid, and that is Loretta. So he basically like indirectly told his own daughter that my bad choice was you. I don't know, I just felt like, what? How can you ever say that? And the fact that, like, you know, it seemed like he loved her so much from like their interactions together, but clearly not, because he just straight up left and was just like, see y'all. Like, didn't even, I think he like had a note or something like that. I was just like, I can't do this anymore, I can't live in this kind of situation, just because things were hard for them. But things were hard for everyone. Like, millions of people were having the same hardship as he was, but he thought his was worse, and so he just got up and left and was just like, I'm done. I mean, I would say that the one thing I wished happened in this book was kind of a resolution with the husband, Rafe, just because after he left, he was just gone from the book. Like, I never saw him again. He never showed up. His whole family, like, every once in a while would be like, oh, is that him? Do you think that's him? You know, whenever they were like on their way to the west, to California, even when they got to California, they were like, oh, do you think that one over there is, you know, my dad? So they were still clearly looking for him, and like that never, like, no encounter ever happened again. I felt like, in a way, I can see why Kristin Hannah did this, but at the same time I've been like, I wish that there was some more of a resolution, like, hey, you know, like a final like closure, I would say, between the family and the husband, but there was none. So that's probably the only thing that I would say that I kind of missed from this book. The only thing I want to mention was kind of the way how they were being treated once they got to California. It was just so crazy how selfish people were. These people were clearly struggling, you know, they upped their farmlands and they had to move to California because there were promises of jobs there. But the way how these like cotton farmers treated them, and the way how just everyone in society treated them at the time, is just so prejudiced. And I was like, dang, that's just kind of crazy, because, you know, everyone clearly is just trying to survive here. And it not only did, like, I felt like, yes, I can see, yes, obviously the cotton farmers were trying to make money, etc., but at least have a heart. I felt like there were just so many things that they did that was just incredibly like insane. So at one point throughout, like towards the end of the book, Elsa and her family ends up going to a cotton farmer for this guy, this wealthy farmer, and the way how he just tried to like jack them on prices and like kind of force them into like a life of like servitude and slavery was just insane without actually saying so. So like he would be like, oh, I provide all these nice amenities for you, this nice store that you can purchase your things from, but he jacked the prices up. And then when people came back with money to actually like pay off their credit, because he only allowed credit in there, he's like, oh, we actually don't allow cash in here, so the only way you can pay us off is if you show us like your pay stub in a way from the farm. So if they had cash from anywhere else, if they had, you know, like something else or whatever, it didn't really work there. And then when they got their pay stubs from what they earned in the cotton farms, they immediately took off 10% of it, because it was like, okay, now it's going to be credit, or like now it's going to be cash. I forget exactly how it worked, but like they basically took off 10%. So I was like, now they're basically forced. And not only that, but the store prices were like jacked up. So if she had just gone to like, you know, a regular grocery store like in town, it would have been significantly cheaper. But because it was like for convenience and the fact that, I guess, like the farmer was like, you have to purchase things from the store. She couldn't not purchase them, so she found herself in a situation where she had to buy these like overpriced stuff. Not only that, but she couldn't pay off any of her things because she wasn't earning enough money. And then whenever things became hard for the farmers, they would like decrease how much people were earning. So at first I think it was like $1 or something like that, and then they took off 10%, so it was like 90 cents. And he's like, okay, well now because people are you know, talking about like a some sort of like revolt or riot or something like that, I'm going to jack off another 10%. So now it's down to like 80 cents. And then he said some other excuse and it went down to like 60 cents. So basically they were earning like so little for how much they were actually doing. And this is like hours of like hard work in the farm where they're trying to pick cotton. And I guess I don't really know how cotton works, but I think like you can really easily like prick your fingers when doing so. So they were also getting like injuries while doing it. So it was just like insane with how he was treating people, and like not just him but like everyone around him. So it was just like terrible. Like honestly, like there's this situation there was awful, and they definitely had to face a lot of like perseverance there. But anyways, that's to say for this video before it gets like way too long, or just my like indignance to the injustice of it all, because it was just awful. The one thing I want to say before I finish off this review is Loretta. Her change throughout the entire book is incredible. Like in the beginning, she was obviously like, she just hit 13, she was going through her rebellious stage, everything in life was terrible, she hated her life, she hated her mom, she hated everything. And then once they went to California, like the fact that she was able to just do a 180 and start to become more independent and think for not only herself but her younger brother and her mother. And like towards the end of this book, when after like Elsa passed away, which by the way I was like, what the fuck is this, because I did not expect like the main character to just die. But the fact that she was able to like kind of have like a level head and just be like, you know what, enough is enough, I'm gonna do this. And she did it and she got away with it, and I was just like, dang girl, like I am rooting for you this entire way now. Yeah, but like this book was just so many ups and downs for sure. Like I honestly like teared up a bit when Elsa passed, because I just really did not expect that. Like it was just so heartbreaking to see like this woman who had persevered so much, faced through so many hardships throughout her entire life, and just have it like end like that. I was just like, damn, that sucks. But yeah, this book was just incredibly well written. So what does that say for this video, this book review? Let me down below if you have read this book yet, if you have read any of Kristin Hannah's books in the past. What did you think about them? I feel like her books for me, for the most part, have all been like 5-star reads. I think there were like 1 or 2 books that I read from her like way back when that I gave like 4 stars, but for the most part her books were just incredibly well written. I don't know if they have stand up like through the test of time or whatever, like if her books still hold up now, the ones that she had written like 10-20 years ago, but either way though, like her books now for the most part have just been incredibly well written. Really like all of her books. So yeah, definitely cannot recommend her books enough. Anyways, that's to say for this video. As always, if you did like the video, please give me a thumbs up. It really does help out my channel. And if you'd like to see more content of me, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. As always, don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!